All right, here we go. So what I want you to do is, let's get a blank word processing document, okay? And when I look at my screen, up on the toolbar, this elements gallery that have these different tabs for home, layout, document elements, tables. I want you to go and click on tables, okay? Click on the tables tool or the tables tab. Okay, now what that does is it opens up a toolbar that gives us a whole bunch of different options, okay, of selecting some different tools for creating and working with tables. Now, I can also get here, if I don't select this, I can get there from View, and I'll show you that a little bit later on. So there's a pull-down menu item that also gives me the option of getting to the screen. Okay, what I want you to look at is over here on the left where it says New. There's a little pull down that gives us a triangle that allows you to select the size of the table that you want. And what I want you to create today is a table that's going to be 9 rows by 2 columns. Okay, so I want a 2 by I want a 9 by 2. Come on.
Go the other way.
Yeah, I know, but
Go down.
I am, but it's not counting the way I want it here. 2 by, I guess I'm going to go 2 by 8. So that's as much as I can get. That's okay because we'll modify this anyway. Okay? So I got a 2 by 8 table. All right? Everybody okay with that? Now, when you guys create this, what it does is it creates that table within the framework of the margins. So I see that my margins kind of changed here a little bit. If you look at the toolbar, you'll see that here's the left margin. There's a margin that looks like a tab or a right indent that's right in the middle of the page, which is the column break here. And then you'll see over on this side, there's the end of the second column. But when I create that table, it automatically fits it to the margins of my document. And we'll talk about changing the size and all that stuff later. So just hang in there with me and let's do this step by step. Okay, the first thing I want to do is put a title in my table. Now my cursor is flashing up in the first column, and the title that I want for my table is the cost of raising a child. Okay, the cost of raising a child. Okay, and we're going to leave that just left aligned because we're going to do some formatting, some change in here of our table in just a little bit. Okay. Now, to get to that next row, I want you to get down right here below the cost of raising a child. Let's just click in that row directly below. Okay? And this is information, this is financial information that we're going to use that is as of April, not April, of 2011. As of 2011. Okay? So we're just putting in some labeling information that we're going to use on our table. All right, now, next thing I want to do is format this just a little bit so it looks better, so it's easier to read. So let's go up, and I want you to select the first row by just clicking and dragging across to select column 1 and column 2 in my first row. All right? Everybody okay with that? Now, with that selected, I want you to go down and click on the table layout. Let's go to table layout. And under table layout, you're going to see a whole new set of instructions, of little tools to use to format the table. Well, the one that I want selected here is the one called merge, because what I want to do is merge my first column and my second column together, but just in that one row. So let's click the merge. And then you'll notice that that bar in the middle has disappeared. It is no longer 2 columns, it's 1 column, but my text is left aligned. So let's go over to my alignment, and let's choose to go center align from my pull down. Okay? Now there's a number of different alignment options here that you'll see. And we'll come back and talk about this a little later, but there's a top left, top center, and top right. Those won't matter right now because our column is not wide enough or a row isn't tall enough for that to make a difference. But we'll come back and we'll address some of those in a little bit. All right, now let's go down to our second row, okay? And I'd like you to select, again, column 1 and column 2 for as of 2011. And I'd like us to do the same thing. Let's go up and do merge. Okay, now you see that vertical line between the column goes away. Then let's go align, and let's choose align center. All right. Now the rest of my rows are untouched. They remain identical to the way the table was created, and that's what I want. All right. Now let's go down to my first empty row. So it's going to be row 3 of my table, and let's put in some labels that identify some of the data. Okay. What I'm going to give you is data that is actually true data for the cost of raising a child. I use this in my financial management class. We talk about this, and so these are real numbers that were as of 2011. Okay, so let's identify some categories. So let's put a label in category. And now what I want to do is get to this next column, okay, by hitting the tab key. Let's just hit the tab and it tabs me across. So it's kind of like creating a tab problem. It just moves me over to my next column. And for this column, I'd like us to put in cost. Okay? Now for category, for that label, I'm going to leave that left aligned. But my cost, I'd like us to center align that in the column. So let's go up to our alignment tab again, and let's do center. Okay? So as I enter data in my first column, it will all be left aligned, but then my data that I enter in this column is still going to be left aligned, but I'll show you how we can make a block adjustment to that after we get the data in. All right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put in the different categories that, that are suggested costs that you share as your part of being raised as a child. All right? So the first one is probably the most expensive, and that's called household expense. Okay? Then let's hit the tab key. Let's tab across to my second column. Okay, the number I'm going to give you now is the average cost of raising a child from birth to 17. Okay? And the government study in 2011 showed that at that time, that number was about $221,000. Okay? Average cost of raising a child from birth to age 17. Okay, now that's statistics taken from all across the country. All right? The most expensive cost that your parents incur is household expense. And your share of the household expense is about $70,500. So I want you to put a dollar sign, 70, comma, 500 with a period and 2 zeros. Okay? And there's a reason I want you to do it this way versus just putting 70,500. I want the 2 zeros on there because when we perform a function called an auto sum, it's automatically going to put those numbers in there for us. So I want you to be able to see that. All right? So your share of the housing costs from birth to 17 is about $70,000. Okay? And we'll explain more about that in a little bit. Now to get to that next row, hit the tab key. As soon as I hit the tab key, Microsoft is intuitive enough to know that it needs to go to that next row. All right? The next cost that is incurred from raising you is food. And your share of food has been averaged out to be about $38,000. So dollar sign, 38, comma, 3 zeros, period, followed by 2 zeros. Okay? Let's hit the tab key. Clothing. Okay, this number actually surprised me. It's not as much as I thought it would be. So clothing, let's key that in your third row. Hit the tab key to go across. All right, everybody with me? You got this? Okay. Your share of clothing is $13,500. Okay. I thought it would be more than that because if you stop and think, if you go clothes shopping before school starts, at the beginning of the school year, probably not uncommon for you to spend several $700 in like August. Is that correct for most people? And some people spend closer to, it might be an annual kind of an event where people spend upwards of $1,000 depending on, okay? And then if you take into account, Christmas, and you take into account other times of the year where you buy, maybe a winter coat and a spring jacket and all that kind of stuff, for 17 years, that's less than $1,000, average, which I thought was maybe a little bit low, but that's what the study showed. So that's what we'll go with. All right, let's hit the tab key. Okay, here's the next one. Child care / education. Okay, so child care / education. Okay, let's hit the tab key. All right, now the most expensive part of this is childcare because daycare is unbelievably expensive. Education isn't that expensive as far as, you being here in school, this is free, okay? But extracurricular activities, those kinds of things, your parents pay for. If you go to that school across the street, that's not free. Parents pay for their kids to go to that school because St. Bernard's is a private school, all right? So public school is free. If people send their kids to private school, they're going to pay more than the average for education costs, all right? Yeah?
What's like the difference of going over there?
The difference would be smaller class size, probably more individualized kinds of instruction, okay? And if you want your kids to go to a Catholic-based or a religious-based type of school, okay? I'm a public school teacher. Both of my kids started at St. Bernard's. And the reason I put them in St. Bernard's is because they absolutely loved the kindergarten teacher. They thought that she was the greatest thing on earth. And my philosophy was, you know what, if my kids get excited about education, I'll pay whatever it costs, all right? So that's one of the reasons, okay? But for a lot of people, it's the smaller sizes. They might have 15 kids to a class where a typical elementary might have 25. Okay? All right, so education costs. We're looking at $41,500. $41,500. But out of that, a lot is going to be daycare for the average, family that maybe has, one of the parents or both the parents are working, and so kids spend a fair amount of daycare. Okay, let's hit the tab key again. All right. Transportation. All right. Transportation. Whoops, and I spelled it wrong. Okay, your share of transportation, about $34,000. Okay, so what that represents, let's go 34,000. What that represents is if we looked at your parents' vehicle and you average out the cost of ownership of that vehicle over the 17 years from birth to 17, your portion of that vehicle cost is divided. It's the same thing with your house. The house that you live in over 17 years, the value of that house is divided among you and any other people that live in your house. Okay, so that's how we come up with this figure. So for the average child, it's about $34,000 total transportation costs. All right, now I'm at the end of my table, but I still need more columns and more rows. Okay, let's hit the tab key. Okay, the table tools are intuitive enough to know that when it gets to the end and I hit tab, that I don't have enough. So I need one more category to put in here, and that's healthcare and miscellaneous. Healthcare and miscellaneous. Let's hit the tab key. And healthcare costs are fairly expensive as well, $38,000. So let's go $38,000. All right? Then let's hit the tab key one more time, because what I want to get here is a total cost. All right? So let's put in the label, total cost. Then let's hit the tab key. And hopefully this works. Let's go up on your toolbar up here. See the auto sum function? Okay, everybody have that visible? I'm in the table layout. So if you're not in table layout, you won't see that. Okay, click on auto sum. All right, and what it's asking us to do is to get a sum of the numbers that are above. Let's confirm that with an OK. all right? And my total came up to be 235,500. Is that what yours is as well? Okay, so we're in good shape. Now, I was a little cautious in using that sum function because sometimes if you take a graphic and you put it in the background behind your text, it will not allow some of the functions of the table to work. So I like doing all of my figuring and my formatting before, and then if I use a graphic, put in the graphics at the end, because then I'm not going to screw up, something that I'm trying to get formatted. All right. Now, what I'd like you to do is let's select the data for all of our numbers by just clicking. I'm just going to click and drag down to select all of those numbers. And what I want to do is to change the alignment of that to a center align. Now, I did those lines up here individually, but let's do it as a block this time. So let's go up to align and let's do a center. Okay, so now I'm just going to take those numbers, I'm going to get them lined up so that they look a little neater, and then I'm just going to click off to deselect. Okay, so using these statistics, all right, in 2011, 235,500. So you're kind of an expensive little monkey to raise. All right, this is average. Now, people that make lower incomes will have a little bit lower level of expense. People who make higher incomes have higher expenses, but these are average. So if we average this across the country, that's what we come up with. Okay? Now, let's do a little fixing on our table. Let's do a little messing around here just to show you the power of the table tool and how quickly and easily you can make changes on this. First of all, we should save this. We've been working on this for a while. So let's go up to File. Let's do Save As. All right? Let's go to your folder, to our Q4 folder. And in that folder, let's go to your teacher guided folder. Okay, Dylan, do you have a teacher guided?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's go to teacher guided. Do you have a teacher guided in yours? Okay, just save yours in the regular folder. We'll move it afterwards. All right, and let's just call it the cost of raising a child. That's fine for a file name. Let's just do the save. So in case something goofy happens here, we lock up, we aren't going to lose this. Okay? All right. Now, when I hover my cursor over the table, do you see that little cross in the upper left? And then you see a little open rectangle in the lower right? Okay? The cross is used if I want to reposition this on the page. So if I want to physically drag this down, I'm going to click on this cross and I'm going to drag it down. It will physically move it vertically onto my page to a location where I want it to be positioned or centered. If I'm trying to align it and position it better, all right, that's how I move it, is with this little crosshair up here in the upper left. If I want to expand the table, if I want to make the columns taller, all right, what I do is I put my cursor right over this little rectangle, and I have to get the arrows so that they're kind of at an angle, a diagonal, and then I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to drag the table down so that, so that it's going to be a little taller for each one of my rows. All right? So I want you to make an adjustment on your table so that you can see that there's a significant difference in the size of your rows. All right? By just dragging this little rectangle down slightly so that it enlarges the table. All right? Now notice on my left side where I have category, is your category right up at the top of your column of that particular row? Okay? It's kind of housed or docked right up in that upper left corner. Okay? So let's make a little adjustment on this. Let's select all of the data in my first column. Okay, let's select all that in the first column. And then let's go over to my alignment. So I got to go to table layout. I'm going to click on table layout. And on my alignment, okay, notice that the top left is selected. That's the default. Okay, so let's say that I want that to be center left. I want it in the center of the column. All right, horizontally, or excuse me, vertically, but I still want it over on the left side. So let's choose center left. All right, so now my text is going to line up a little bit better with my data that I aligned center over here, but I just did that as a block move. Okay, we good with that? All right, let's go up and let's click in the row that says as of 2011. Okay, now we're going to make a couple of adjustments on this to make the table appear as if there are separate text boxes for the cost of raising a child and for as of 2011. Okay, what I want to do is I want to separate those from the rest of the table. Okay, so with my cursor here that says as of 2011, on your toolbar, I want you to go up and find the option that says split table. Okay, got to make sure you're in the table layout. Let's click split table. And what happens is it looks like I screwed my table up, doesn't it? Did yours do the same thing? Okay, now if yours worked, that's fine, but don't do anything. Just look up here. Before you move anything, notice that my stuff kind of looks like it piled on top of each other, like it layered it. That's okay, because all I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and I'm going to find my handle and I'm going to click and drag this down, and notice what happened. Okay, it took this table and it just layered it on top of the row above it. It split it, but it just layered it up above it. Okay, so all I have to do is just drag that down. So now my first row is actually separated from the rest of my document. All right, yours working? Everybody's okay with that? Okay, let's do the same thing with my next heading. So let's click down here next to category. Okay, let's go back to table layout.
Wait, mine didn't do that.
All right, and in your table layout, let's go split table. Okay, now again, it looks like it layered it again, so I do the same thing. I just go up and grab my handle, pull it down, and now I have a separate heading for both the title, Cost of Raising a Child, and also for as of 2011. Okay? Questions on that? All right, so let's go up and click inside of the Cost of Raising a Child. Click on the Tables tab, and you'll see that there's a bucket for shading. So just like we fill in a graphic object from other things we've done, let's go ahead and let's pick kind of a light blue color, and let's fill that with a shade. Okay? Then let's go down and click inside of my second label, okay, which is my second portion of my table heading. And let's find, again, a shade color, and let's choose maybe the yellow. Okay? So these become graphic items. It's just like any other graphic that we want to do a fill, and we find those options for filling them up here in the Tables tab. Okay? Now, the next thing I want to do, let's click inside of Category. Let's just put the cursor in here. And I think this is going to work. I should have tried it, but I didn't. Let's try it together. I want to go get a graphic to put inside of this. Now, when I bring a graphic in, I think what's going to happen is it's going to make a mess out of everything. But don't worry about that. Let's see what happens when we do this. So let's go back on our toolbar. Let's go up and click on the Home tab. Okay? And when I click Home, let's go over to my Insert a Picture from a clip art browser. Okay? Everybody good? What I'd like you to do is let's scroll down and see if we can find, should be a little kid here with a computer someplace. I think that's the one I was looking for. Maybe not. Let's take this person right here. Just take one of the people. All right? Select that graphic and take the graphic and drag it over and drop it on your table. Okay? Now, don't worry about it. It screws it up, but I told you it would do that. All right? So just get a graphic on your table. All right? Everybody with me on that? We good? All right, let's click on the graphic to select it. Okay, when we select it, it has the handles on it. Now we can do the same thing here that we did when we worked with graphics before. When it brings this graphic into Word, what does Word think this is? An inline text graphic. So it takes it as a great big letter that is inside of this particular cell, okay? Because that's where I dropped it. So let's go up to Format, and let's choose to format the picture. Okay, so now we get these familiar options that we have for formatting our picture. Let's go down to Layout, and in the Layout tab, let's choose to move this behind the text. All right, and then do the OK. All right, now when I moved it behind the text, it popped out of that cell, correct? And it's kind of sticking out below the problem, below the project. Okay, so is yours the same? All right, now one thing I want to warn you on, when you put a graphic behind a Word document like this, okay, I always like to do it and have a little bit of the bottom sticking out so that I sometimes have a tendency to lose it behind the graphic. If I get it so that it absolutely fits perfectly behind this table, it might actually slide behind the table, and if I want to make any changes on it, I can't. Okay, so it's like it hides behind it. So I always like to have any adjustments that I make, I do it outside of the table. So I'm going to make this a little bigger by grabbing not this handle down here, but I'm going to grab this handle here. And I'm going to stretch it across so it kind of fits within the framework of my table. But notice I've got a little edge here, and I have a little edge over here. Okay? Now, the other thing I might want to do with my graphic is work on that transparency, because that maybe is a little bit too dark, depending on the graphic that we choose. We might want to do a watermark. Okay? So if I select my graphic item, notice now when I click up here, I can't select that because it's behind the text, right? So now I'm going to go down here, and that's why whenever I make changes, I like to have it outside of the border of that graphic item, because clicking up in here, it's not going to get it, all right? So now if I want to go and format the picture, let's click on Format Picture from your menu bar. And let's go to your transparency slider. Let's wash this out just a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to do a lot. I'm just going to do a little bit. Okay, have a noticeable change now that you made on your graphic. And then when you think that you have it positioned about the size that you want it, I'm going to use my up arrow and I'm going to slide this up and I'm going to bump it just a little bit so that it is now about evenly spaced from top to bottom, and then I'm going to click off to deselect, and now there is my project with a graphic background. Okay, now I'm not saying you have to do this on your tables, but I want you to know how to do it to use that graphic in the background, because it just enhances the looks of the table. Okay, now once we've done that, let's save it. Let's go Apple S to save again. All right. And now if I go and preview this in about 50%, okay, here's what it's going to look like. Okay, so my question is that view balanced? It is not, is it? Okay, so what do I mean by balanced? I mean I want to see equal amount of white space on the bottom as I do on the top. And right now I'm not seeing that. Okay, so I need to fix that if I want this to be completely balanced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor on this bottom table and I'm going to drag it down. Okay, now notice what happens. My graphic does not go with it because I haven't grouped this. Those are independent objects. So now I'm going to grab my graphic and I'm going to use my down arrow and I'm going to slide my graphic down. Okay, and I'm going to get that position where I want it. Then I'll go up to my second label and I'll pull that one down. And then I'll go up to my first label and grab the crosshair and I'll pull that one down. Okay? And again, I might need to do a little bit of fine tuning once I get it all repositioned. Okay, notice my graphic popped up a little bit. So I need to bump that again just a little bit. And now when I look at that, I don't know if that's perfect, but it's pretty darn close. Actually, I got it maybe a little too far down that time. I could slide this up just a little bit, but I'm closer than what I started with. Okay? And then I'm going to save that. Okay? Questions on that? All right? So using the table tool, it gives you an option that I think, depending on the project you're doing, might be easier to use than tabs, depending on what you want your project to be. Maybe it's a science project and you're reporting results. Maybe it's a social studies project and you're doing population of specific regions. I don't know, there could be 101 different opportunities for you to use the table versus having something in a tab problem. All right? Questions on that? Okay, so let's take a look at the assignment then that I'd like you to complete here today.